Franz Wagner went down in New York City on Sunday afternoon. We're going to go over who's going to have to fill in that giant German size hole in the Orlando Magic offense and defense. This is the Orlando Magic Nation, your source for all things Orlando Magic on YouTube. For Magic fans, by a Magic fan. I'm Edwin Valentine, and I want to thank you very much for clicking on this video and spending a little bit of time talking Magic with me. You got to do the normal YouTube thing, so hit that like, share this video, drop a comment below on how you felt about the file, and if you want to do so, hit that subscribe so you don't miss out on any content that I produce. So obviously watching the play in the game versus New York on Sunday afternoon was definitely something that is disappointing when you see how unfortunately the pass didn't get to him in time for him to be able to have control of the situation. So he went up for an alley-oop that came a little bit late, landed awkwardly when he was fouled. In this video, I'm going to talk a little bit about possibilities on how long the injury is going to take. I'm going to be showing you a quick video from the YouTube channel from Brian Sutter, MD, who does a really good job of kind of explaining all these types of injuries to the lay people and his explanation of it and what he thinks it was from pretty much right after the injury. Then I'll go over the website Cleaning the Glass and go over the different lineups that the Magic have used so far this year in the little bit of time that Franz is on the bench, who has been playing some of the small forward positions and how things have gone, and kind of just estimate what we think the Magic are going to do. Now, I'm sure there's going to be a lot of trial and error, which is something that happened a little bit with Paolo. But because you had the anchor in Franz who could slip over into the 4 or the 3, sometimes the 2, then that actually helps a lot. But Paolo is not going to really slide into the small forward position. He doesn't have the speed to be able to stay in front of guys defensively. So I don't think that's something that we're going to do very often. But we'll talk more about that in just a moment. So to go over or to look through the video from Dr. Brian. Let's just call him Dr. Brian because I don't know if I'm getting his last name right. Here is what he had to say about the injury.
Franz goes down here. He basically lands on a hyperflexed or a bent knee. So his left leg is the one we're going to be looking at here. In this position with his knee bent, that's knee flexion. Knee hyperextension would be when it goes straight or beyond straight in either direction. So as he comes down here, he's essentially landing directly on a hyperflexed knee. I think best case scenario here is that all we're dealing with is some severe bone bruising because of just the direct impact of him landing on the floor. But if you think about all the structures that are going to be stretched whenever you land in this hyperflexed position, and we'll also take a look at the rotation of his tibia, I definitely think there's potential for a more serious injury. From this view looking at his backside, we can see the position of that tibia relative to when he lands. So again here you can see that just the fact that the heel is up against the butt, that's going to lead to that hyperflexed position where the knee ligaments, tendons in the front of the knee are all going to be excessively stretched. But here, importantly, you can see how the foot is a little bit externally rotated. So his toes are pointing outwards. That's going to cause the tibia, the shin bone, to externally rotate. And then as he's coming down, he's basically landing on that hyperflexed knee with the tibia externally rotated. As the play continues here, you then see how suddenly his foot kind of snaps back into that neutral position. And so this tells you that there was definitely some rotational stress as well on the knee because of how that tibia was rotated outwards as he came down and landed. If we look through it in faster motion, right there, you see that quick, sudden release of the foot. So that's telling you that there was a lot of built up energy from that external rotational stress on the tibia, and then boom, releases through. So we've got to be thinking about what could cause damage when the knee is hyperflexed and when the knee is loaded in an externally rotated position. The main things that come to mind in those situations are a stretch or a tear of the quadriceps tendon, the patellar tendon, or an injury to his MCL ligament. So the quadriceps tendon is going to connect the muscles in the thigh, the quad muscles, down to the kneecap. So the quadriceps tendon is above the kneecap. Whenever you excessively flex or bend the knee, it's going to stretch that quadriceps tendon. And then down lower below the patella, inserting on the tibial tubercle, you're going to have the patellar tendon. Both of those structures are going to get stretched the same degree whenever you hyperflex or bend the knee. So landing when it's already hyperflexed can stretch those structures beyond what they're capable of handling, potentially leading to some degree of strain, rupture, etc. of the patellar or the quadriceps tendon. Regarding the MCL, whenever the tibia is externally rotated and you land, that's going to put some stress on the MCL. And so I think there's another possibility here that the MCL could be injured because of that external rotation that we saw with his tibia that then released. as his weight came off of his knee. Remember, too, that the deep layers, the underside of the MCL, anchor into the medial meniscus. And so anytime there is a hyperflex position load on the MCL, you can also cause damage to the underlying meniscus. The big injuries people think about, like ACL tears, PCL tears, I didn't see anything that would raise my concern for an ACL tear. Typically, the ACL is actually in more of a relaxed position whenever the knee is bent like this compared to when it is straight. Now, landing directly on the knee can certainly cause trauma to the PCL because of how the PCL is trying to prevent the tibia from going backwards. However, the combination of the hyperflexion, where really his tibia couldn't travel any further because it was braced up against the thigh, I think makes that less likely. So again, I think I'm hopeful here. Best case scenario, this is just some significant bone bruising. The mechanism, that hyperflexion, makes me think about quadricep tendon, makes me think about patellar tendon. The external rotation in the tibia, you think about some increased load on the MCL and possible underlying attachment to the meniscus. I will say also the fact they're calling this a lower leg injury instead of a knee injury, we've got to think about other things like the bones in the lower leg, such as the fibula. If you think of what can occur whenever somebody has a high ankle sprain where that foot is externally rotated and you land, that can cause energy to transfer up to the fibula and can cause a fracture called a Mason-New fracture at the top of the fibula. I think they're probably just being generic for leg instead of specifying knee, ankle, etc., but keeping in mind all those other possibilities as well. I think we have to be prepared for a longer term absence here with Franz. You know, if this is just a simple bone bruise, remember in the locker room, they've done their evaluations for ligaments, they've done their evaluation for tendon injuries. Those are very quick, those are pretty simple. If those all check out to be normal, then you'll likely list the athlete as just questionable or doubtful to see if that bruising in the bone potentially settles down where they can get back and play, especially when it's so early in the game like this was. Whenever you hear about an immediate rule out, that raises concern that something on the exam was abnormal, something with the tendon, something with the ligament, some concern for a fracture. And so I think because of that immediate rule out, we have to be prepared that this could be a more lengthy absence going forward. But what exactly that is, we will have to wait and see.
I don't know. I think that's interesting at the end when he was talking about that they just immediately ruled him out for the rest of the game. That's kind of the Magic MO, really, right? They're very conservative. They want to make sure that guys are able to be around for the long term. So I think once he fell down and once he had to be helped off, it just makes sense that he was going to be out for the rest of the game. Would be no reason for him. If this was the NBA Finals or something like that, maybe he might have given it another shot. But it's the December. We got plenty of games left. We have a whole rest of the season and hopefully a deep run in the playoffs. So it's better for us to be conservative with Franz, especially when he fell like that. So I suspect that that's why that they ruled him out so quickly. So that part is the thing that I'm a little like, okay, I think we'll be okay with that respect. But to talk about some of the things that he mentioned on there, so to give like a timeline, he mentioned 1 to 3 weeks for a severe bone bruise. That's pretty conservative, or excuse me, that's pretty aggressive. Apparently, doing some searches around in either from ChatGPT because I'm not a doctor, or Google because I'm not a doctor. But these are general medical expectations for severe bone bruise because it depends on how bad the bone bruise would be. Then it could be between 4 and 8 weeks on average for the bone bruise. So for him to miss a month or two, it's still a good case scenario. That's still a best case scenario, right? We were hoping that it's not something that could be season ending. So let's hope that it's either a bone bruise. If it's an MCL sprain grade 1, then it's a 1 to 4 week missing, because I've been around athletes enough to know that a lot of times they said that they'd rather the bone break than for it to bruise because it hurts so much. And ultimately that bone could be weak enough that if they come back too soon, then it might break anyway. So that's why the bone bruise ends up being, as you see, weeks to months, just because of the severity and the type of injury that is. But an MCL sprain grade 1 to 4 weeks. So maybe he might be able to be back pretty quickly, actually. That would lead us all before Berlin. And we really, just for him, I'd really want him to be there for Berlin. Obviously, as a fan of the team, I hope he's back as soon as possible. But if he has to go all the way up to the Berlin game and we don't see him till next year, I think in the end that'll be still a best case scenario. MCL grade 2 is 3 to 8 weeks out. If it's a meniscus issue that's non-surgical, it could be 2 to 8 weeks out as well. If it's a meniscus surgery, then it's 6 to 12 weeks, that 12 plus weeks. So that one really just depends if it's going to be more of a cleanup or a full restructure. If it's a quadriceps patella tendon strain or tear, if it's a minor strain, 2 to 6 weeks off. If it's a partial tear, 6 to 12 weeks. And if it's a full rupture, it's 6 to 12 months. Months. So yeah, we would see him in see the 26-27 season, Franz. But I hope that that's not going to be the case. The proximal fibular fracture. 6 to 8 weeks is the normal return for that. 6 to 8 weeks plus. So again, also not the end of the season. So I think that's all positive news in all the situations other than meniscus surgery or a tear of any sort. Because if it's a full tear, then he's going to be out for quite a while. So these guys are young, so hopefully, we've seen Giannis when he was younger fall down, look like his leg was broken, and he was able to come back the next week in the playoffs in 2021. So maybe Franz has got that in him as well, and all the other muscles in his knee and around his knee have been able to guard the knee structurally, and he was not able to have that big of an issue when it comes to the tearing or bruising or any of that other stuff. So let's hope that that is the case, and he's not going to be out for way too long, but he's going to be out for some time. So to look at the options for the Magic, this with Franz out, he's obviously our starting small forward. He was, I think, having an all-star caliber first few months of the season, just as he had last year. So again, this injury could not come at a worse time for like personal stuff, the all-star games, and hopefully being able to play in front of his in his home country, and being able to play in the NBA Cup quarterfinals, because he wasn't able to play in last year's against Milwaukee. This time we're at home, so it would have been more likely for us to be able to win that game, but unfortunately he's not going to be able to make that one either. So for all those reasons, it stinks. Obviously for the team aspect and for our emotions, it's bad that he got injured at all, and especially when it looked as bad as it did. But again, hopefully he has been pretty durable throughout his career so far. So let's hope that all those muscles in the leg have been put to good use, and they didn't all explode in that respect. But to look at this, so this is from the website Cleaning the Glass, and it basically gives you a differential. If you're someone who's been watching the channel for a little bit of time, you would have seen a lot of this information when I was doing the player profiles for each one of the players. Swing on by if you there's a whole playlist of them if you wanted to check that out. But here it gives you, this is the, you call it the four factors. So really, we're looking at the shooting, the turnovers, the rebounding, and the free throw rate on offense and defense. So really, there's 8, and it gives you a little bit of the difference between the points per possession on offense and defense, and it gives you all of that information on here. So there's a lot of numbers. If you're a numbers person, don't worry. I'm not going to be saying the percentages or anything like that. At least not too in depth. But what I am looking at here is just to see, when Tristan is the small forward, what do things look like on a points per 100 possession, and like what's the difference on offense and defense, which is basically the net rating, right? So we're looking here when it's Bane, Black at the guards, and it's Paolo and Tristan at the forwards, and Goga, there's a negative 11.2 points per 100 possessions on there. So that means they give up more. They give up 134 or 135 points per 100 possessions, and they scored 124 points per 100 possessions. So they're at negative 11 in that one. And that's in 54 possessions. So if we look for one that is without Franz and actually is pretty good, it's tough to find, to be honest. It's Tyus, AB, Paolo, Goga, and Tristan at plus 30.6 points per 100 possessions. I think that's the best one with the most amount of possession. So again, a lot of these are going to be small sample sizes just because Franz has been our minutes leader for the team. Tristan is going to be the starter likely. So if we look at the starting lineup with him, it's with Jalen, Bane, Tyus, Paolo, and Wendell. It's only had 17 possessions, and they're a plus 11.4 when it comes to the differential between offense and defense. And that's mostly a much better defense than offense. They scored about 117 per 100 possessions versus giving up 106 points per 100 possessions. So I'd say that is the best lineup, or that's the lineup we're going to see the most. So that's going to end up creeping up. They're going to have way more than just 17 possessions. Hopefully it's not too many more. Hopefully Franz is not going to be out for too long. So fingers crossed on that. But that's with Tristan starting in Franz's place. Now to go over to Tristan here, this is where you're able to see what Tristan's numbers have been in the different positions that he's played. So here at the we can see in the small forward position, in general, he's a plus 10. So that last bit that I was talking about was which with individual lineups, but just him as a whole, just playing the small forward position, including all the different variations. He's in the 83rd percentile actually, and he's a plus 10.1 points per 100 possessions at the small forward position. So that actually is a pretty good number. He's played about 1/3 of his time on the court at the small forward position, so that actually is pretty good. It looks like it's 119.4 points per 100 possessions versus 119 points per 100 possessions on defense. So in the end, that is going to be a good option. And it's good that those numbers look good because last year's with him as the small forward, whereas he was a negative 9.8 over the course of the year. So I think him playing with Desmond is my guess on why these numbers look so good with Desmond at the shooting guard. And a lot of these numbers are team oriented, not just him personally. So I think that's that's something that in the end it's going to be a positive for him to slide right over. He was a starting power forward while Paulo was out. Now he's the starting small forward, and hopefully we're able to keep that plus 11, and that's going to start increasing with more possessions. We go back to this one here. We're going to go to check what things look like with AB because that's what I think is going to happen. AB is going to end up sliding over from a guard, and I think he's going to start playing a little bit more at small forward. So when we look at AB's numbers, surprising. I didn't realize he had been playing small forward as much as he had so far. So to look at that, he already has 98 possessions in with one of the lineups at small forward, and it's a plus 29.8 points per 100 possessions. So in his top four, because he has a bunch of other ones where he has less than 10 possessions, but in his top four possessions, 98 possessions, he was a plus 29.8. And with the next one down, again, that one in the second one down where he's a plus 48 points per 100 possessions, that lineup includes Franz as the power forward, so he's not going to be there, unfortunately. But again, still point or plus 48 points per 100 possession. That's a really great number. 60 possessions, so it's not a huge number, but still, it's still rather well. The next lineup includes Noah as the power forward and Goga as the center, and that's 27 possessions is plus 39. And the last one I will talk about is again with Franz as the power forward, plus 55 points per 100 possessions for him in that. So if we look at AB's numbers, so far this year, he's played 26% of his time at small forward and is a plus 20 points per 100 possessions when accounted for all the different variations of him playing at small forward. So it's going to be a not too bad of a rotation. Now, with AB moving over likely from one of the guard positions to the small forward position, that means maybe Jett, we're going to see him a bit more at the as a backup shooting guard. Maybe we start to see Jace play a little bit more shooting guard and just be out there to help with the offense, since we are going to be without Franz. You know how normally Franz is basically mixed in with the bench unit, and without Franz being there to help with the offense, we're going to likely have to have more from AB on from the bench unit scoring more, and we've seen that he's been able to do it. He just has to be more consistent, and I think that's going to be the big thing that is going to be the make or break for the Magic in the next few weeks. Is AB going to be able to be more consistent and giving the offense more consistency, because that's he's been able to give them more by once in a while popping up and scoring 30 or scoring in the 20s now a bit more consistently. But if he can be high teens, mid teens every single game, that's going to be something that will really help out the team and help out the bench, of course, because the bench isn't going to have Franz there to help them out, but it also is just going to help the team as a whole. So I think that's going to be the big focus for AB, is to be a bit more of that score, is to for him to be. They've been talking about an X factor for so long. Now people know about him. He's not as much of an X factor. He needs to be a factor, be the factor for the bench unit, especially if Tristan is going to continue to struggle. Tristan will likely be a starter anyway, so he's not going to be a part of the bench unit. But still, we're really going to need more firepower. And as we still wait for Mo to come back, it's going to have to be AB. It's going to have to be sprinkling a little bit of Jett. It's going to have to be Goga with a lot more putbacks. They're still going to, of course, add Desmond and Jalen to the lineup with the bench guys, and or Paolo. There's going to be a mix still, so it's not just going to be all five bench guys, because offensively there just isn't enough there for them to sustain for very long. Now, to get back to this view, just look at some of the other small forwards. So we talked about AB, we talked about Tristan. There's been a few lineups with Desmond as the small forward, with Tyus, Jace, and then Desmond playing, or Tyus, Jalen, and Desmond playing the small forward. Those have been okay, but there's very, very, very small sample sizes. So we're not really even going to talk about that. Obviously, Franz in a lot of different situations. There's a little bit of Jamal Cain there. I don't know if that's something that we want to do to bring to start using our two-way guys, because if we start using up our two-way guys in their availability, that's really going to hinder us later on in the year. So I'd rather keep that in our back pocket and just fill with other guys. So like we have Jett Howard here at small forward. If in the end we decide not to move AB over to the small forward, but with Jett also doesn't have that many possessions as the small forward. 16 is his max, with a negative 12 points per 100 possession differential. The best one has Franz in it. You're going to see that Franz is pretty much in all the good things. So that's why it's such a devastating blow for us not to have him. But if we look at Noah, so Noah, I think would be an interesting addition to the group. So if we look at, it's all the full bench unit. It's he's at plus 22 points per 100 possessions difference, but again on 9 possessions. So he doesn't have enough playing time really to be able to look at the information and take that really in depth. So that's going to be something that would just be more of a leap of faith, given how well he's been playing in general, because he has been giving that spark. He's been giving that energy. Technically, they could put JI there as well defensively at times if we needed that versatility. And even without the offense, because if they play with Paolo, Jalen, and Desmond on the court, and then we have J.I. at the small forward, then at least we can hide him a little bit offensively. So who knows? At this point, we're going to be, I'm sure the coaching staff is going to be throwing things at the wall other than easy plugging in Tristan to start. That's going to be an easy start, most likely. And then it's going to be, okay, what are we going to do with AB? How are we going to deploy him? And if it's not going to be him, then is Jett going to get some more time? Is Noah going to have a bit more time? So I think with the versatility of the team, and we are a deeper team, and a deeper team than I think a lot of people give credit to. They aren't known commodities necessarily. There is just a lot of potential in a lot of the guys, especially the back end guys. But because of our ability to play a bunch of different types of guys, I think that's really going to help us to be able to smooth out a bunch of the issues that we might have when it comes to either not being able to score. We'll be able to, instead, we're going to add Jett, or we're going to add Jace. So we need a defender in that position. Boom, we could put AB, or we're going to be able to put JI in there. So that's something that we at least have a good amount of versatility within our team, especially when we're healthy. We have a lot of versatility on the team. And I think that's going to be something that even when we're not healthy, hopefully our deep bench guys who have shown so much potential are going to be able to really start to blossom a bit when they get more run. So I think that's going to be a bit of what is decided for the team moving forward without Franz. We wait for the information. We don't really know just as of yet on how long he's going to be out. We shall see. Here, what do we have? Reading this from Philip Rossman Reich. Okay, good news. All right. Sorry, I'm looking at the breaking news now that in the end, the injury isn't going to be too long, which is great news. It looks like we are, instead of a knee or even a broken fibula, he ended up having a high ankle sprain in his left leg. His return is dependent on how he responds to treatment, but we expect it to miss 2 to 4 weeks. Incredible news. I think that's going to be... That's great news. Thank you, basketball gods, because really at this point, we haven't really had a full complement of our guys for quite a while, at least not since we've been playing so much better, and Desmond has been integrated a bit more. So great news for the Magic. So if it is, let's say 4 weeks still, that's still a good amount of games, and we have a lot of tough, our schedule is still pretty tough for the next few weeks. So all this stuff on this video is still going to be relevant, but 2 to 4 weeks is an incredible timeline. Let's hope he's able to hit the under at the 2 weeks, and then that'll really help us when we hit that road trip, I think, at the end of December. So great news. All right. Well, thank you for watching this video and getting the news with me as in real time as I was getting ready for this video. So positive news in this. We do have the different options to be able to paper over this shorter than expected absence. So let's hope that they are able to play well, all those guys that are going to be plugged in, and they're kind of the potential guys, the potential unit. Hopefully they're able to really start reaching that potential probably a little bit sooner than what we'd hoped to get them in, because we were hoping to, let's say, softly add Noah and Jace over the course of the season. They might just have to have the Tristan treatment from last year, where they just threw him right into the fire, and I think those guys will be able to handle it. So let me know below what you think of the great news that Franz is only going to be out for 2 to 4 weeks. It is the Magic, so they might end up keeping him a little bit later because they're conservative, but still, this is great news overall. Let me know what you think. Who would you play at small forward for the bulk of the time that Franz is going to be out? And do the rest of the YouTube things, like, share, and if you want to do so, hit that subscribe so you don't miss out on any content that I produce. So thank you very much for clicking on this video and spending a little bit of time talking Magic with me. I hope you're having a great day.